Hi everyone. Good morning. My name is, or good morning, evening, afternoon, depending on your time zone. Okay. My name is Ahmad Abdulaziz, and I'll be presenting a talk on that's building API first application with Node.js. Yeah, that's the topic. A little bit of myself. Just like what I said, I'm Ahmad Abdulaziz. I'm the tech lead for Droop Limited, and you can find me on Twitter with DevaMars. I think that's just. I'm still the co-lead for Facebook Developer Cycle Abuja. So I think that's the little about me. And since this pre-record presentation, I'll be on the chat if anyone have any questions, so I can actually answer the question. If you have any question, just drop it as a comment. I'll be glad to help or to clarify anything you want to know. So clearing that. So first, what is API? Well, according to Google, an API is a set of function and procedure that allow the creation of application which access the future of data and operating system application or other services. Yeah, that's the Google definition for that. So I'm going to use a kind of slide to a picture to explain that. So what API actually helps you do is a kind of it start as it help you to assess is the let me give the scenario. Let's say for example you're trying to build an application that is going to cross different platform. So instead of having to build to fix every platform one by one, I think with API you can actually build for web, and it's going to actually serve it. You can build for mobile, you can build for IoT, even if you have an admin system, it's actually going to do that. And from just like what you see from the diagram, like your cloud service can actually be attached to your API. If you have API partner, maybe you have a partner API you're actually working with, you can all can actually come into your own API gateway here. So your API is actually going to distribute or feed the mobile, the web, and the IoT without you having to create different application for all of them or different database. So all can actually access different database, different backend, and the rest. So I believe that actually simplify what API actually helps you with. So knowing that that's API. So what is API first approach? API first approach, just with a very simple definition, just from the word API first approach, is an API first development. It simply means developing your API first. Yeah, I think that first is already in the definition. So that's actually the really like a very simple meaning. And another thing, like another definition that you can say, okay, your right, that is your business logic, the functionality, will first be exposed to the API before building the rest of the application. So what this actually means, literally like, okay, you firstly, anything you're trying to build, any feature you're trying to build, logic, anything on your application, you firstly build it as an API before telling the front end guy, the UI guy, the mobile guy that, okay, you guys can actually connect to this particular functionalities. Okay, if your user asks for new functions or new, or you're trying to fix and you're trying to add a new logic, it will always be an API first before actually exposing it. So that I hope I actually justify that and simplify it. Okay, so API first actually helps us with a lot of things, and one of the things, some things that actually help us with, it helps us to plan. So API first help us to plan the functionality and the logic of the API. Yeah, well, because you've actually firstly tried to do all your, yeah, I know a lot will say that. Of course, I do plan before I write my code. But with API first, you already draft all the logic and the functionalities of the application, and you know how you're actually going to expose this to your user. Data to be exposed. And with API, you actually really plan the data that will be accessed internally, or the data that will be accessed to your users. That's if you're like the definitely if you're building, let's say for example, you're building an API that is supplying other users, maybe apart from your internal application, you're building API. For example, GitHub, yeah, there is public API for them, so you know the kind of data you're actually going to. So API first, actually, that thinking helps you to kind of settle down and think, okay, how are we actually going to plan this well? And scalability, yeah, it's API first approach actually make it easy for you to scale your application, right? It's really help you instead of like when you're actually growing, it really helps you to grow fast. Um, and that so why API first approach? Because I like okay, I've been building API, I've been doing this, so why should I do API first approach? Why is that okay? API first approach, your development team can work in parallel. Like API first approach really help you with agile system. Yeah, it help you because when you don't really have to wait for the designer to finish all this, but everybody can start working on parallel, like work at the same time. It's really to support agile system, which I think that's the best way of building any software this time around. So far, actually very small software. It reduces the cost of app development. Yeah, it actually helps you it is because of app development in the sense that you don't really have to build for different apply different backend from different platform. You're just connecting to all your platform are actually just connecting to one single API, which that really help you a lot when building an application. It increases the speed to market. Yeah, when you're actually exposing when you're working with API, you expose the API that are actually ready to your user. You don't wait until all the application is actually completed before you know that okay, yeah, my application is complete totally. Any part that is actually ready, you can expose that to your user. You can test that with your user, and that actually help you. We reduce the risks of failure. And from the application you actually send to your, or from the one you test a lot before you actually send it out. So that will actually know help you to iterate fast and know that okay, yeah, this is actually going to work. This is not actually going to work. So that really help you to really move fast and fail fast and actually fix your bugs and failure fast. And scalability again, yeah. From what I explained the other time, is help you move like when you're thinking of okay, I'm trying to grow. When you're building like all the cloud service or any cloud service, you actually almost everybody is actually using cloud service now. So with that, it helps you actually scale to other platforms, to other device, or to actually grow bigger. So that's another why I think we should all use API first. So API first approach might not be for you. Yeah, like as cool as it is, it might not actually be for you. Like if you're building a very simple stack application, just your front end, back end database, like just very simple application. Yeah, you can use it. It's not bad to use an API first, but I think it's kind of the overkill. Yeah, that's what I think though. So a startup trying to get out fast. Yeah, if you're a startup, I've worked with different startup, and one thing I really noticed is that for startup, they really like kind of we need to be out there very fast. We need to be out there very fast. And API first approach will really take time because you need time to plan, you need time to test, you need all those times. So it might really kind of slow you down. But apart from after that, trust me, it's really worth it because after all your testing, you know, okay, you're not getting this kind of bug, you're not getting this, you really test a lot. And so, but if you're really trying to kind of hit the market very fast, or as fast as you could, uh, API first might kind of be a challenge because it's really slow down when at first stage. But after that, right, it's really easy for you to grow more faster. So, and if you're wondering, like, okay, API for is anything or how many companies actually, these are some list of companies that are actually using API first. Twilio, I think Twilio is actually API only company. Twilio just expose their API to you. They don't really use it, so it's API only company. Uh, I had someone who was actually talking of something like API as a service. I don't know if that's actually a real thing, but I think that we're actually moving towards that, and I think that's what Twilio is actually doing presently. We have Stripe, we have Angolia, we have ST, we have Netflix, and Sendgrid. So these are like kind of big companies that are using API first approach. So you know that okay, this is actually something you should really explore. So that part, that's me clarifying what API first really mean and what API itself. So I say okay, building from the topic said building with Node.js. So for those that actually don't know about Node.js, which would be kind of weird. So Node.js is actually an open source cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment. They're very popular tool, and it's suitable for almost all uh, projects you're trying to run. Is a JavaScript runtime engine on V8, that's Google Chrome engine. So it helps you, basically it helps you run your JavaScript on backend. We all used to running JavaScript on our browser. So this actually helps you us to kind of develop JavaScript on our server. So clarifying that, a kind of prerequisite on what you actually need for you to start using a Node.js application, for you to start building Node.js application on a machine, you will need to install Node.js. Yeah, obviously you need to install MongoDB. That's it depend on, sorry, these are actually, but for this example I'll be using MongoDB. You can install MongoDB on your system locally, or you can actually use MongoDB Atlas, that's the cloud support for MongoDB, and I think it's really really cool. That's MongoDB is a non-relational database, so it's really good for startup like you're trying to actually build fast and go out there. So Postman for testing, we'll be using Postman for testing is an headless browser for testing your APIs. Uh, Getting all that too. Moving forward, so bien pasemos. I don't know if I pronounced that right. So let's get started. Uh-huh. So to build your API, sorry, I'll be using, let me put this, I'll be using Node.js library that actually make it easy for us to call our HTTP and kind of make it easy for us to work with Node.js that we're writing a big code, and it's very, very simple and straightforward. That's Express. So that's so for you to actually start, you can create your yeah, I'll be building a very simple application. That's my contact. It's just I just want to build a very simple pre application and show you how it is, but in a kind of API format that will make you very easy and scale. You can actually think of scalability of that. So I'll show you that. So make that that's on your terminal. You create a directory, my contact. You cd into that. So after cd into that, you create a package.json. To create your package.json, you actually depend when you install Node.js, you install npm directly with it. So if you install your Node.js, it's actually coming with your npm. But I prefer using Yarn, which is another kind of did the same thing that npm, that's Node Package Manager, actually does. So this is your package, the JSON. So that will actually help us to know, okay, or these all our dependencies we know for this particular project and start everything. So I'll be using Yarn. So for Yarn, you'll be using npm, Yarn init, that's initialize minus y. This minus y flag is just to show that, okay, and normally if I remove the minus y, it's going to ask me some couple of questions, but just for me to skip all those questions and just create the package.json file for me. So I'll be using minus y, just like, okay, yes, minus y actually means yes for every question you have. So after, you can use your npm to, if you use npm install minus y, so it's actually going to give you the same thing. Sorry, npm init minus y is actually going to give you the same thing. So here we have yarn had. So I'm trying to install all the dependencies I'll be needing for this application. So I have yarn had express, body parser, mongoose .env and esm. These are the dependencies, just like kind of basic dependencies I'll be needing. I'll be explaining these as we actually move on. So yeah, and I'll be installing NodeMon. NodeMon is actually kind of help me instead of anytime you kind of make a change instead of restarting your server all the time. Yeah, npm nodemon actually help you to restart automatically without you restarting your server all the time. Clearing that. So this what your package of JSON will actually look like. You will see the script, the author, that's your own name, that's your GitHub name, uh, the license. Then these are the dependencies. You see the body parser, the .env, the ESM, the Express, the Mongoose, and the nodemon. So what the body parser actually help us to kind of pass the JSON directly into our like anything we send from the HTTP, right? It actually helps us to handle that the JSON. We have the .env. .env is kind of environment file, so you use it to store all your environment file. Let's say, for example, you have keys. You are actually using maybe your API keys you don't want to send to GitHub, so you use your .env files to actually say that. Then your ESM. ESM is actually application that allow you to import to use import instead of normal Java Node.js require. Yeah, the Node.js team are actually working on the ESM. They are working on the import part, which is, I think, I've forgotten the extension we use for that, but it's not, it's still, they've released that, but it's not like completely stable. So I prefer using ESM. Some actually use Babel, which I prefer, but I think configuration and everything, I don't really like going through that stress. So, but with ESM, you just install the ESM. So after installing that ESM, you can use it to run your application. So just like what you see on the start here, node does my R flag to like pass it to ESM, then ESM no server. That's just it. Then the mongoose will be like it's the ORM for our database. Yeah, MongoDB is actually is non-relational database, right? So and that can actually, yeah, we can actually mess up the database very fast with that, because you can just kind of start pouring all the data without any structure and everything. So which that might actually affect your API or the way you actually build with at long run. So with Mongoose actually help you to kind of structure your database, like give your database a structure. So that's why I choose. They are actually different out there. And if you want to use a MySQL database, there is SQL too that can actually help you with that. So then we have the nodemon to actually help us restart our server. So your package of JSON should look similar to this. At least you should have all the dependencies installed. Before I actually start going, I want to explain how my folder structure will actually look like. I love when I'm building API, I love actually using the MVC. That's model view control, which I think is the general accepted design for Node.js. Like you have your controller, you have your model, you have your view. That's when if you're actually building. But since I'm actually building an API only, so my view will be omitted there. But you can actually, everybody can actually, I can build my view like with maybe React separately, then can connect with this, which is really fun. So I love using MVC as my design. So this is my controller here. I have that's the user controller. Then I have the model, which I have the user model too. I have the routes index. That's all my routes will be in there. Then I have my utilities file, which my DB connection will be there. My error handling. Then the helpers file. That's just for me to write some function that I really want to use. So after initializing that, after I just want to show you the structure of how my folder usually look like. So which is that we can like you can maybe use your, if you're used to GUI, you can create a file, name it server.js, or you can do that directly from the terminal to just touch server.js. And that server.js actually help you to create your file. So we've installed our dependencies, we've created the first file, which is your server.js file. So it's time for us to initialize the server. Like, okay, let's get our server running first. So to get our server running, I already explained that, okay, we'll be using Express, right? So you import the Express, import Express from Express. That's actually importing from your dependencies. So you have the import JSON. That's the I'm structuring this from body parser. Then I'm requiring the .env to like from the configuration, and then I'm passing the part of that my .env file, which I actually have from the folder structure. I have my .env here, so that will actually help me with that. So I create my after importing my Express. So I have my app equals to Express. That's me now initializing the calling the Express function itself. So I can now use that app now. Actually use it. That's the server now to pass every other middleware and anything that I'm actually want to pass. So now here I have app.use, which is express.use JSON. I'm trying to pass the body parser and everything here. Then I have my route. So I have my route here. So this route is just like the welcome. So welcome page, that's when you have your slash, just like you have your index. So router dot, sorry, this is actually supposed to be app.get. I'm going to explain why I have router.get here maybe later along the way. So I have res dot status, which is 200, is going to actually return 200 status for you that okay, what you're actually trying to do was successfully. So welcome to HashiTalk Africa. And then I have my app.set. This app.set helped me to set the port of my and the port of my server. So we have different, mostly the most random, the mostly used ports are actually maybe 80,000. So just like that. So this will actually display your app is running on your console. So this actually is what will display when you try to run this. So moving forward from that, we have my database connection. Just like what I told you, we'll be using Mongoose, which is an ORM for MongoDB. So this is how my database connection actually looks like. Yeah, I have the calling that's importing the Mongo, and I have the DB connection. Then yeah, pretty much that's just the connection and everything. So if you have an error, it's going to log the error that okay, maybe the database is not well connected and the rest. So you're actually going to have that there. So you export it so that you can actually use it in other files. So so this comes to the model part. So, I talk about MVC, that's which is controller, MVC, that's model, view, V, that's for view, and we have the C, which is for controller. So the model part of it helps you structure your database. So here I import my Mongoose, which is the ORM I'm using. I'm trying to say, okay, use, because there is this error that usually pop up for. So I'm trying to tell the Mongols to use the global promise. I use Node.js global promise for handling promises. So here I'm kind of, yeah, I'm trying to structure that's my schema structure that I'm passing here. So mongoose.schema, then I have that's the first name, it has to be string, it's required, the last name string required, then the gender, which is string, and is not required, you can put the gender or not. The email have to be, yeah, the email string to should be unique. This part actually means, yeah, if the email is not there, which will give you null, you can have multiple null with that. Then I make it index, that's under JavaScript index, under MongoDB index. You can really check that out. That actually really help your database with run your database fast. Depend on the index you're actually using. Then I have the phone number. So this is just the structure of my application. This is everything. This is just the structure of my database. This is everything I actually want to collect from my user, and this is the way I want them, right? So after that, I export to my database using mongoose.model.user. So the name of that collection will actually be user collection, which is just like your table. Then you pass your user schema there. Wow. Then now we have our controller. That's the C part of the MVC. On our controller, we importing the model. That's my mongoose model I created. I'm importing the model. That's following the part import the model. Then I have these function sync. Instead of like I say I tried not to kind of repeat try and catch all the time. So create a function that actually helped me to handle that try and catch. So instead of writing try and catch all the time, this helped me with that, which is inside my helper, that's utility folder. And I have the, so for me to create the first, you to create a contact now. So I just name the function create user, which I'm exporting immediately. So you can do this in a different way. You can export the whole thing at the same time, but I just prefer using this method, which is me exporting all the functions I'm actually creating one by one. So with that, I have the create user. So this async handler actually helped me, just like what I said here, imported helped me to handle my try and catch itself, writing try and catch all the time. That actually helped me with that. So I have the request async, then the request and the response. Here, I'm just trying to make it as simple as I could, since I'm just trying to create a contact, not any kind of big logic that actually could actually run in here. So I have a constant that's a variable new user. I'm passing the user model that I imported from there, so dot create, and I'm passing all the query. Actually, that's everything I'm sending from, maybe from my front end application, everything that is inside the body, I'm passing it directly to create my user. And then normally, right, you have to kind of check all the, like, okay, and you have to validate your inputs. Like, you just don't like pour the input directly into the database. You have to validate that, okay, is this email actually correct? Is this phone number the way it should be, and the rest. But I'm just trying to make it as simple as I could, so I'm passing that directly. So this actually helped me to create my, um, helped me to create my user into the database. So this is the response. The response will be 2.0, and that's which means it's actually successful. And you have your message. Depending on the kind of message you want, you can actually pass it anyway. Then the data will be new user. So it's actually going to return the new data you just created for you. So we have the get user too. So if I want to get a particular user, right? Let's say, for example, I'm trying to search, okay, this particular user in all my numbers. So I can pass the parameters, the ID. I will be expecting the ID from my URL, or from my URL. So I'm catching that ID and passing it, which is a parameter, right? I'm passing it into this. So I'm going to use the model.find by ID, which is the ID. You can actually use different things. So actually, if I can use name, I can use, but I think ID is kind of simple and straightforward. So, and not a username would be kind of weird because you might have different people with the same name. So you choose something that is kind of unique, right? If you're trying to find one particular thing, at the same time you choose something that is kind of unique, maybe email, or phone number. So this will actually return the data you are trying to find, and it's going to check if the user that, like, if you can't find any user there or user that have that particular ID, is going to return user not found. So this is you reading now, right? We create with the above this create user, we create with that. So me now trying to read maybe the user I just created, or that. Then after that, I'm trying to update. If I'm trying to update, so it's still the same process. You pass the parameter. That's the one thing that is unique about the user. You pass it to find the user. After finding the user, if the user is found, it's return. If it's not found, rather, to return user not found. Then you await it. That's find by ID and update. That's you're still passing the same ID now. After search for the ID, which I think that's actually reputation. So you're passing that ID and updating that's with require that's body require dot body. So you're still passing all the parameter you get from your body. Now that's, let's say for example, I'm only want to update my name. I'm expecting only the name to my first name rather. I'm expecting only the first name to come, so I'll update that immediately. Just that's straightforward and simple. Then I have what's it called, to delete a particular user. If you want to delete a particular user too, you just need the parameter to delete that particular user. So this is just a very simple CRUD, right? Create, read, update, and delete. So I think going through all that, so now that means I have an API I can actually expose. I have some routes rather that I can expose, right? So these where the routes actually came in. So for the routes here, I'm importing the Express rather. So the Express, which is the general, which I'm using to as the HTTP library for managing my Node.js. So I have the create user from my the create user is from my controller, right? So I imported all the create user, the get user, the update user, and the delete user. That's from the controller. That's the part from the controller here. Then I'm declaring my route here. That's express.router. So this router now, right, is just like, okay, it's a method inside the express. So help that's what will help me create the route. So router.get slash that's, which is the same thing we saw when I was actually trying to initialize the server. With this slash actually does means your index, which will show you welcome to HashiTalks Africa. So I just want to use that as example. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, down here I have my, why is this not scrolling? Okay, yeah, that's all. So down here I have my router.post. So which means this where when you your post method from the front end. So when you use slash user, right, it's going to call this particular function which I imported from the controller. So that will actually help me to create my user. So I use router.route. This in Express actually, instead of you having to do, if you have the same path you're trying to call, which I have the same route rather here, which is router slash the ID. That's the parameter I'm sending from the front end. So since I have that, so instead of having to create them one by one, forget update, which I use put or delete, instead of having to do that for each one of them, so you can just do that on a straight line. So I have router dot route instead of dot get directly. So I'm going to put the route that I needed, which is user slash ID. Dot get is actually going to call the get user. That's this particular one here. Dot put, which is update user, is actually going to get that, and the delete is actually going to delete the user for us. So here I'm exporting that, right? That's after creating my router, I'm exporting my router. Then finally, yeah, finally we have this how your full uh, server will look like now after creating all your controllers, your model. So you have your parser here. You have I'm importing the DB creation I showed earlier on. I'm importing my routers, my routes, yeah. So this is the DB connection. So I'm calling the DB function here that I imported above. So I have my app, which is Express. So the same thing I explained earlier on. So we might actually have different version of our application. So since we have different version of the application, so we can use that as app.use slash API slash version 1. So this another thing that API actually help us to do. Let's say they depend on let's say when we started we have version 1, right? And maybe in the next 1 year, we make some changes, we make some this. You can have version 2. So instead of trashing all the version 1, right, that will cause some break, that will cause some user applications to break, or some, if you are building API only for other people to use, that may actually break their production too. So you have them in different version for you to actually help maintain everybody application. So you have the ports, just like what we have initially, and you expose that. So this will actually look like. I have all the code like on my GitHub, so which I believe I actually have the link to it, or I will be sharing the link on the comment section if everyone, for everyone I need that. So, and me using Postman to test, right? We have to actually test that, okay, is this really working? Is this how we actually expect that? So I create a collection, that's a content API collection. So we have the user, that's the user collection, sorry, content API. Then we have the user collection, which we have the get, we have the create, we have the update, we have the delete, and the rest, right? So these are how you actually pass your data from the as a JSON, right, from the Postman. So after passing this, if your creation was successful, it will give you this. So yeah, it will help give you this. So I think that's that how to actually use a Postman, which is really really simple and really really cool. So this actually help us to expose the different version, like the different routes. So here we have URL, which will be the URL of your, that's your, if you host it, if since I have not hosted it to be my local host and the port, then I have the API version, which is version 1, and the route I'm trying to access, right? So I have my post here and I send the data and the creation was successful. So that's that. So we have different routes, that different API routes you're trying to access depending on what you're actually doing. So yeah, I think, yeah, thank you. That's all. Thank you very much.